Today I'm going to show you how to knit the bee stitch. Now the bee stitch comes from the Brioche family of knitting stitches, which means it has the most amazingly squishy texture. Don't let the fact it's from the Brioche family of stitches put you off from giving it a go. It's only a 4-row repeat and it is worked across a multiple of 2 stitches, so it's really not anything that is overly complex to get to grips with, which makes it a perfect introduction to brioche knitting. Bee stitch is not a reversible stitch pattern in the traditional sense. On the front of your work you get this honeycomb-like texture, which is where the stitch gets its name from. But if I flip my sample over, you can see that on the reverse side you don't quite get that same definition, but it does still look really good. So I would class this stitch pattern as being able to be reversible. It just doesn't look identical on both sides. The texture and softness of this stitch pattern lends itself to projects like scarves or hats or anything where you want this really nice soft texture. And actually you could also use this stitch pattern in something like a dishcloth if you worked with a slightly firmer yarn, for instance a cotton or a cotton blend. You will see a lot of patterns state that you need to cast on a multiple of 2 + 1 for bee stitch to work. All that is a very fancy way of saying that you need to cast on an odd number of stitches. So as long as you make sure that that cast on number that you pop onto your needles is odd, then this stitch pattern will work. For this tutorial, I'm just going to cast on a very small sample of 21 stitches, but you can cast on as many or as few stitches as you like. As always, I am choosing to use the long tail cast on method, but you can use whichever cast on method you feel comfortable with. As I mentioned earlier, bee stitch is just a 4-row repeat, so this is going to be a nice short tutorial. And for row 1, you are going to simply knit your way all the way across. Now in the bee stitch, your odd numbered rows form the wrong side of your work. So this very first row, row 1, is a wrong side row. And all that means is as your project grows, when you knit those odd numbered rows, you're going to have the wrong side of your work facing you. Row 2 starts by knitting the first stitch, and row 2 is a right side work, and row 2 is a right side row. Next we're going to jump into a 2-stitch repeat that we're going to work across our row until the end of the row, and that repeat is as follows. First you are going to work a knit 1 below. So instead of grabbing this stitch that is actually attached to your left hand needle, you're going to find the loop from the row below, and you're going to pop your needle into that loop from the row below and then knit it as normal. Then you are going to work a knit 1. So that's your 2-stitch repeat. Let's work it once more. So you are first going to work a knit 1 below. So instead of going into this stitch that's on your needles, you're going to go into the 1 from the row below and then knit it as normal. And then you're going to knit 1. And you're going to work that combination all the way to the end of the row, and you should end on a knit 1. Row 3 is the same as row 1, so you are just going to work your way across your row and knit every single stitch. So for bee stitch, all of your wrong side rows, your odd numbered rows, are just knit rows. Row 4 is the final row of our repeat, and just like row 2, we are going to be combining knit stitches with knit 1 belows to create that nice honeycomb texture. So to start row 4, you are going to knit the first 2 stitches. Then once again we're going to jump into a 2-stitch repeat, and on row 4 we're going to repeat that across until 1 stitch before the end of the row. And again, that 2-stitch repeat is knit 1 below, so don't forget you're not grabbing this stitch that's actually on your needles, you're going into the stitch below, and then knit 1. That's knit 1 below, and then knit 1. And you're going to repeat that all the way across until 1 stitch before the end of row 4. If you count your stitches correctly, you should hit this final stitch after you have worked a knit 1, and then to finish off your row, you are again going to knit this final stitch so that you have the 2 knit stitches at either end of your row. To grow your project, you would now go back to row 1 and repeat those 4 rows again, and repeat that process as many times as you need until your project is the size that you want it to be. Then when it comes to casting off your work, you want to cast off knitwise on any right side row. So you'll just want to have the right side of your work facing you, and instead of working a textured row, you would just work a knitwise cast off all the way along. Just a couple of final bits and bobs before I leave you to your knitting. If you want a written pattern, you will of course find a free one on my blog, and I've linked that down in the description below. And if you are not quite ready to tackle some brioche knitting, then why not have a go at this stitch pattern that I'm going to link here. It's also nice and simple and looks great in so many projects.